What's going on, people? It's your boy Astro coming at you today with another One Piece discussion. On the heel of One Piece Chapter 1000. Wow, some crazy stuff went down in that chapter. We saw, the flashback with Ace and Yamato, not all the supernovas, but the 5 supernova that are going to be squaring off against Kaido finally get to the top and stare down Kaido and Big Mom, while Luffy passed them, talked to Kinemon, and basically assured him that he will carry the flame of Odin for him by taking at least Kaidou down. Now, a lot of people have been skeptical for a long time if it would even be possible or if it would be realistic for Luffy and the supernovas to even, take down Kaido. Kaido's introduction is one of the most epic introductions ever. In that introduction, he basically is attempting to commit suicide by jumping like 10,000 kilometers down from Sky Island. And just basically casually gets up and says, "Oh, guess I survived again." It's not the type of thing you see, especially in One Piece, that much hype being given to a character. Now, Kaido obviously is a Yonko, as is Big Mom, Blackbeard, Whitebeard when he was still around, R.I.P., and Shanks. And, the Yonko are super hyped. But today's discussion, it's important to really take a step back and think about narratively what Oda has been trying to say to us this far. Because it's very easy to sit back and go, oh, if Luffy wins this, it's an ass pull. This is, Naruto syndrome, like Naruto training, learning Sage Mode, and then basically becoming a new Jesus. I think that Oda has shown himself to be a more capable writer, quite frankly, and we should give him the trust that he's going to honor this with class. I've done a video in the past about Gecko Moria coming and possibly Blackbeard and Luffy going Nightmare Luffy, but that is not necessarily my number one opinion anymore. Based on how deep we are into this, I need to break down why I think that it would be valid for Luffy to beat Kaido in this arc. In fact, to beat Kaido and Big Mom, as funny as that sounds, in this arc. Which I know it sounds crazy. I'm sounding like a One Piece fanboy that's just not willing to call Oda on things that don't make sense. I assure you, if you're willing to listen, I will make this make sense for you. So, how I'd like to start. Oda, from the very beginning, has kind of showed us the durability of Luffy. Luffy's fruit is the Gamu Gamu no Mi, and right off the bat, a fruit like that, I think a lot of people really underestimate just how broken it is for a person's anatomy to be made out of rubber, especially in this verse. It basically gives damn near unlimited benefits in terms of like durability, flexibility, even damage output. Things that would damage a regular person are not necessarily going to have the same effect on rubber, let alone a rubber person like Monkey D. Luffy. Luffy's Gamu Gamu no Mi is super OP in my opinion because not only is he able to tank things that normal people can't really tank, but his damage output, he could basically just stretch himself to give himself more speed and therefore put out more damage, because mass times acceleration equals force. So the more speed that Luffy gives himself, which he can do, either by stretching himself further, making himself bigger, or, bumping his immunity with something like Gear Second, pumping his heart faster, he has many ways to kind of buff himself in that sense. To this point, we haven't necessarily had a Super Saiyan moment. And I know some people could say that Gear Second, in a sense, or Gear Fourth, was kind of like a Luffy going Super Saiyan moment. I would say so in terms of a transformation, perhaps you can make that argument, but in terms of like plot importance and needing to pull something out at the right time, I don't know that we can kind of compare the multiplier that Super Saiyan, gave someone like Goku in the Frieza saga to, a Gear Second versus Bluno and Lucci, or even a Gear Fourth versus Doflamingo, Cracker, and Katakuri. So, to not go on too much of a tangent, we have to really look at the reasons that people think that this is kind of an ass pull. And the reason that people think that is because Kaido has been built up to this degree that it seems like he is really unbeatable. Same thing with Big Mom. We went through an arc that basically showed how beastly she is, but we know from the lore with Kaido that one-on-one you should bet on him. The only person that I realistically think would really beat him or stand a chance, and there's a few people, or really the top brass of the universe is the Shanks, the Admirals, even the Admirals, we could really have a debate on how many Admirals it would take, or if any Admiral in particular is as strong as Yonko, but the only other people that I think can really give them a run for their money are Big Mom, Shanks. Yonko versus Yonko will always be a pretty good match, with the exception of maybe Blackbeard right now, because I would still rate him as the weakest one. But people say very often, Kaido and Big Mom, they're very old pirates. They have a ton of experience. They're on Rox's crew, and they're gonna let the snot-nosed 19-year-old, basically come up in here and kick their ass. And if you're just looking at it in that way, obviously you'd have a problem with it. And 1,000 chapters in, things have basically made sense to this point, and now all of a sudden, you have Luffy just, getting a Super Saiyan power up with Rio, because that's what people might be assuming will happen. It's possible, and I think it should happen, quite frankly. But the thing is here, Kaido's age isn't known. To go into a few numbers here, try and follow along. So Kaido, or the God Valley incident with Roger, Whitebeard, Rox, and Garp, was 38 years ago. Big Mom in the current story is 68 years ago. In the Ace novel, it was announced, or I guess we found out that Kaido is younger than Big Mom and is from a younger generation. Now, in terms of age, we could kind of estimate where Kaido's age is based on these things. So, we know that Big Mom was in her still pretty good looking, pretty bad to be honest, pretty nice looking, when she was 38, or when she was 30. She still had it going on. So when she was 30, that was when the God Valley incident went, because she's 68 now, it was 38 years ago, she was 30 years old then. We know Kaido was younger. Whitebeard is 6 years older than Big Mom, and they're considered the same generation. Now, I know that generations aren't necessarily by age, but because we know that Kaido is younger than Big Mom, we're just going to use these same guidelines to kind of estimate what Kaido's age should be. So if 6 years can be considered the same generation, it would be safe to assume that anything above that could be considered a separate generation. At a bare minimum, 6 years should be the absolute maximum for that distance between ages and generations, based on what we know with based on what we know about Big Mom and Whitebeard being from the same generation, but having a 6-year gap. So, if we assume that during the God Valley incident, Kaido was, at a bare minimum, Monkey D. Luffy's age at the beginning of the series, 17 years old, that would mean that he is anywhere from 17 to 24 during the God Valley incident, if we're being pretty modest on the age difference between Big Mom and Kaido. Because if Big Mom was, 30, and she's a different generation than Kaido, again, we're using that same rule, so let's take at a bare minimum of 6 years to bring him down to 24 at about the oldest, and 17 at the youngest. So anywhere between 17 years old and 24. And he's on a stage recruited by technically the strongest person on the sea at that point, Zebek, to be on the Rock's crew. He was already known to be a massive, massive threat to many people at the age of 17 to 24, okay? If we go forward a little bit, we know that the Hour of Legends happens basically when Odin was 39 years old. It was 20 years back in current story, and Odin was 39 years old at the time. If we're going based on the same ages, or the same age range that I described, Kaido would be 35 to 42 years old during that incident. Now, that's a good range, again, because you could go on the side that Kaido was younger than Odin, and that's why he was bested by the sword technique, Ame no Habakiri and Enma, or you could go with the side that Kaido was just a little bit more skilled and perhaps he's stronger based on experience. So you could say the left side is 35, saying that he's younger and that's why he was being bested by Odin until that dirty tactic was used. Or you could say that he's 42 years old and bested Odin. Aside from getting slashed, he was still probably on his way to winning. You could really take any stance on this, but let's say 35 to 42 years old. So by that time, he's already a beast and he's probably already one of the strongest people on the sea. The God Valley incident is a big incident. You had the top brass there being Whitebeard, Big Mom, Kaido, Zebek, and Roger, and Kaido was in the fray. The point I'm trying to make here is a 17 to 24-year-old Kaido was able to compete with these people that were at least older than him, but still massively strong. Generally, when people age, they actually get weaker. I understand in anime, more experience, is always a good thing, but you have to also take into account that a lot of these characters are leaving their prime and not quite in their prime. The only ones that should really still be in their prime is Shanks at 39 years old and Blackbeard at 40 years old, because Blackbeard is actually 1 year older than Shanks. Shanks at the God Valley incident would have been 1 year old, so he probably wasn't there unless he was born on Roger's ship, which I seriously doubt, because they probably mentioned that by this point. And Blackbeard was 2 years old, so he was looking at the moon, not sleeping, or whatever circumstances to his birth. So the point I'm trying to make here is that we've already seen, it's already been told to us, that a character like Kaido has been defeated 7 times. It's in his lore. Let me briefly go back and talk about the super epic introduction. This man was looking for a place to die, where his tale be told. As a pirate, he had suffered defeat seven people. Oh my god, why do my fingers look like that? Jeez, man. 7 times, people. So, As invincible as you'd like to think Kaido is, he's been defeated by pirates and marines 7 times. He's been tortured. He probably had a good command of arm and hockey at that point. He was built strong due to whatever heritage we're going to find out that he has. But he's been defeated 7 times. The whole thing of dropping 10,000 feet, if we assume that Kaido is, based on what I've been seeing online, if he was 9 meters tall, which is a little taller than 8, he would be roughly around 3,000 to 4,000 pounds. So he dropped 10,000 kilometers, weighing roughly 3,000 pounds, 3,000 to 4,000 pounds. Again, I don't really want to go into the crazy scaling here, but mass times acceleration equals force. We could really calculate the force that he went into the ground with, okay? So we have, as crazy as it sounds, in a cover story, someone pretty minor, such as Gidatsu, like literally the guy with like the weird candle hair from the Skypia arc, or like he fell 10,000 kilometers off a sky island too, and he survived it. It's hard to say how serious this was meant to be because it was in a cover story, and I'm not one of the people that take cover story as the absolute law. I think it's like more to be comical in a lot of cases. Some people would like to say it's just as true as the manga. I can see it both ways, quite frankly. But Gidatsu dropped from such a distance that Kaido did as well, and he apparently survived it. Now, I'm not really trying to scale Gidatsu to Kaido. I'm just saying that the feat of falling from the sky, Kaido's heavier, weighing in at probably 3,000 to 4,000 pounds, so obviously that's a bigger bang, but Kaido is, a beast, the strongest one-on-one, so to speak. And even the strongest one-on-one, someone would need to contest him. There's not a lot of people that could go toe-to-toe with him, and the people that could go toe-to-toe with him probably have other things on their mind. Big Mom probably does not care about the title of being the strongest creature or person. Shanks likely does not care about being the strongest creature or person. Blackbeard probably does, but knows he probably can't take Kaido out at this moment. And Blackbeard is not above using tactics. So, again, I just like to say that Luffy at 19 years old, we have to realize this story is about Monkey D. Luffy. This isn't about Jeff from Syrup Village. This is about Monkey D. Luffy, has a D in his name. There's a lot of importance to the D in this character and his potential to grow. So far in the series, Monkey D. Luffy has probably been through more battles than a lot of pirates have been in many years. Just because Luffy's only been sailing for a few years, or a few months really in the canon story, it's still a lot of experience that he's went through in a short amount of time. It's kind of like condensing everything into like a cram session rather than, spacing it out. Because who's to say that, there's not pirates on the sea that have been there for 20 years? It doesn't mean that they're automatically better. A nice way to put this is, I've been playing the Yakuza games. Look at somebody like Kiryu Kazama from Yakuza 0 and Kiwami. He is a young guy, and he basically has all the strength going for him. The things that make everybody else in, the Yakuza organizations powerful are the connections, the power, the brass they have, the intel. Those are the things that make them truly scary. Sure, Kuze, Wano, and Shibusawa were beasts, especially Shibusawa being another dragon. Sorry if you haven't played that game, but they were in a way outclassed. They had to do many things to kind of derail Kiryu, because in a one-on-one bout, it was questionable what the result would be. In fact, in most cases, the younger blood was more likely to win, and they understood that. Luffy is arguably getting into his prime. He's just got a handle on Rio, and I think a technique like Rio, it's not too broken in the sense that it's really an addition to what he's already learned. Luffy not only is a D, not only has a crazy lineage, not only has went through major battles and, experienced a lot of things, taken a lot of EXP, he has also trained directly under Silver's Rayleigh, arguably top 10 in the One Piece verse. I would definitely say so. The right hand of Gold Roger, who was also there on the God Valley, was also there at God Valley. So we really shouldn't be underestimating. If we look at, the effect of when Kaido fell into the ground, it actually pales in comparison to the damage that something like Luffy's King Kong gun did to Dressrosa and Doflamingo at the end of that arc. So add that on with that experience that he's gotten from fighting Cracker and Katakuri, add that on with some Rio, and add that on with the fact that he's actually fighting with, some of the strongest, worst generation there is. He's fighting with Trafalgar D. Waterlaw, Eustace Captain Kidd, Killer or Kamazo the Manslayer, okay? And Rorono Zora, the person that's actually wielding Enma right now and is capable of swinging at the sword that actually hurt Kaido already. Not to mention what the 9 Scabbards have done beforehand. I think, and this might be a bold statement, it absolutely would make sense for Luffy to beat them in this type of kaiju battle, because that's what it is. It's not one-on-one, okay? The lore has already told us one-on-one, it wouldn't really make sense for Luffy to win, but the fact that Kaido is sustaining this much damage and he's going to have to worry about so many different factors, it's what makes this make sense. So in closing, remember what Kaido was doing arguably when he was age 17 to 24, based on what we know about other ages of characters and what generation he came from. He was really doing some significant things, and he was in some pretty big battles. So it's not too out of the question to assume someone like Monkey D. Luffy could do something like that with similar training from Rayleigh and experience fighting a lot of other people. Same thing with Zoro, same thing with Law. Monkey D. Luffy is going to be the person to put the most damage on Kaido. It's definitely not a one-on-one at this point. We already know it's not a one-on-one because he already fought 9 scabbards. So, yes. Please, people, when you see this Rio, don't call it an ass pull because, you know, it definitely could have been foreshadowed a little earlier, but it was, because it's One Piece. So, those of you saying it wasn't foreshadowed earlier, you just haven't been paying attention, because I think the earliest point where we saw this type of thing happening was Sabati Archipelagio, where, you know, we had the pushing technique from Kizaru's nephew. His name escapes me right now, but from Kizaru's Sentomaru. Sentomaru was using this type of hockey. We also had it in Marineford, and it's basically been apparent every arc since then. Sure, it hasn't been specifically touched on, but it's not out of nowhere. So calling Luffy beating Kaido an ass pull, if they do happen to, you know, pull it off, I don't think it would be a fair thing to say. In terms of beating Big Mom, I think that Kaido is slightly stronger than Big Mom, though Big Mom is a little older and maybe more experienced. She definitely may have a little bit more of a Hack's Devil Fruit, but if you don't fear her, the Devil Fruit is, you know, unfortunately kind of a non-factor. So, yeah, I think that it's definitely within the realm of possibility that both of them fall, especially since, you know, you have the rest of the Straw Hats and people like Marco, you know, hanging around, and perhaps some of the Scabbards will come back for the rest of the fight. I think that Luffy will achieve a new mode, and this goes back to the whole Super Saiyan thing, Super Saiyan moment I've been talking about. There needs to be a moment where he kind of pushes himself beyond in that moment. And I know we kind of had that with Jet Gatling versus Rob Lucci, but there needs to be some sort of state, maybe a combination of Awakening, Rio, and his Hockey and his Devil Fruit. There needs to be a form that is just a quantifiable boost, like Super Saiyan. Again, I get your point with Gear 2nd, I get your point with Gear 4th, but perhaps the next gear that we see will be legit some sort of transformation that gives him, you know, a scalable power-up to kind of put himself on the level of fighting. Because once he takes down Big Mom and Kaido, even if it is a team battle, you know, you've more or less taken down the strongest people on the sea, or some of them. The only people that you'd have left is perhaps the Gorosei, Imusama, Shanks, but you're definitely now in, like, the highest level you can be in. So, honestly, if I could say one thing, I wish that Oda would let time go by a little more. I don't like the fact that, you know, the journey in the first part of One Piece really only happened throughout a few months. I don't think it would have hurt anybody to let a few years pass. But, you know, that's the way he decided to write it, and Oda's proved to us many times at this point that he's an expert writer, expert for Shadower, so I think that we're going to really enjoy how it happens, and, you know, you're free to call it what you want, but this long 21-minute video was to kind of explain that just because Luffy's young and inexperienced, which, you know, you can't really argue he's inexperienced because he's young, it shouldn't be a reason to say that he does not have a chance. We've seen what happened before where he got Thunder Bagwood and, you know, he got low diffed, but with strategy and creative uses, a champion could take an L. Like, let's say, for example, my last example, you have someone like LeBron James versus Michael Jordan today. Michael Jordan being, you know, in a lot of people's opinion, the greatest basketball player ever, and LeBron James being the greatest right now, or Kobe when he was alive, rest in peace. Any one of them really going up against Michael Jordan. I would say confidently that LeBron or Kobe would have been able to beat Michael Jordan, you know, today. Michael Jordan's 57 years old, LeBron James is in his 30s, Kobe Bryant would be a similar age too. Just the youth on their side would definitely give them the ability to you know, have an advantage there, in my opinion. So that's really been this discussion. I know this was a longer video, but I really wanted to go in depth to explain why Luffy really, especially we've seen him use Red Rock and he did damage to Kaido using Rio apparently in chapter 1000. Please understand, especially when it comes to the anime, it is not an ass pull. Things like this have been foreshadowed in the story, and we shouldn't feel like this is out of nowhere. It would make sense for Luffy to win, but it would also make sense for Luffy to lose. I'm very excited to see what happens next. But anyways, if you enjoyed this video, a lot more theories coming out on this Astro Reviews channel. You can check out my second channel, Shonen Ketchup, for weekly shonen news videos every single Wednesday. If you like me, you can give me a comment. Let me know if this theory makes sense. What you think about this? I could perhaps even do a part 2 on this video. But thanks a lot. I'm trying to grow this channel. I'd really appreciate it if I could make it to 1,000 subs. You know, at some point. I'd say by the end of the year, but I'm hoping I can make it there before that. And you have the capability to help me. So if you enjoyed this discussion, want more from me, want to actively be a part of this discussion, leave some comments, like the video, subscribe. Let's get this going. Thanks a lot. It's your boy Astro, and I'm out.